Hello and welcome to The Gist. I'm your host, Chris Vetrano, here to break down all things in pop culture and interviewing the people that make it pop. On today's show, I'm sitting down with someone who might have the most fascinating post-fame story in the history of American Idol, which is saying something. Clay Aiken finished second on season 2 in 2003, watching 40 million people tune into that finale, and then built a career that went platinum before he was 25. What most people don't know, though, is what happened after. The decade he chose to step back from music, the political campaigns, fatherhood on his own terms, and the quiet work of figuring out who he actually is when the show's not running. He just returned to the Idol stage for the first time in 23 years, dropped his first new music in 18, and he's here to talk about all of it. I'm Chris Vetrano, and this is The Gist. Well, on today's show, I am sitting down with a true American Idol legend. We're talking about a man who finished second on season 2 in 2003, went on to sell over 2 million copies of his debut album, sold out arenas around the world, made his Broadway debut in Spamalot, and then just returned to the Idol stage with his very first new single in 18 years, Rewind. Clay Aiken, welcome to The Gist.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I am so thrilled to have you. I was an American Idol nerd, and
You might have been five or four when I was on the show. So you mean in later seasons, but not possibly in season 2.
Oh no, I was there in season 2. In fact, this is not the first time you and I have met. I actually met you in Denver when you and Kelly Clarkson came through on your, I can't remember what the name of that tour was called. The Independent Tour?
Right.
Yes, but you and I met, I was waiting out by the buses and so that I could just shake
I remember you.
Exactly. I made a huge impact, but many years ago, we were face to face and such a big fan. Obviously, I think one of the things in that time was coming off of the first season, Kelly had this massive success. And then you, as the runner up, ended up, you just blew up in America's eyes. And so it just really went on to show that the show really was designing and building stars, whether you won or came in second or even in the top 10. And it was just such a wild time. And so you went on to do so many incredible things. And I'm so excited to just have you and reconnect.
Yes, after all these years, not next to a bus though, but here on podcasts. They didn't even have podcasts back then. Are you kidding me?
I know.
Yeah. I mean, the show was so big. It was, people talk about second place. It's because the show was so enormous back then that it had coattails that could lift all boats. That I mixed my metaphors there, but I think you got what I meant.
Yes. Yeah, no, it was. And, I just recently also had Chris Allen on, and it's interesting because we talked about the same thing that back then, so many stars were born. You guys went on tours and you guys instantly got into this machine into the music industry. And now, American Idol is a little bit different. We're really focused more on the judges and the panel and the entertainment of it all, but the artists don't get to have that same kind of level of success and career post show. And so do you look back, especially now that you've kind of been back on the stage, do you look back and really now you are so seasoned in the industry, do you really think about that as this gift that that you were given through that time being on the show in 2003 when it was so big?
Without question, I never would have I would not have, season 1 did not get very big ratings. Season 1's ratings were, I think, a quarter of what season 2's were, or maybe even less. So I would not have wanted to be on at any different time. And I think also season 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, they all, as big as they were, had something about them that was a little bit different because they all knew what they were getting into. You know, Fantasia showed up knowing, I've seen what happened with Ruben and Clay. I'm signing up for this, right? It was such a huge behemoth, and they all knew. Season 1 and 2, and I think really season 2 was the only one that had no idea what we were in for. We came in very naively. Season 1, obviously very naive too, but they, like I said, the show did not blow up in the way it did season 2. So I appreciate that. I also think that, you know, there's a lot of speculation and discussion over the years on why Idol was different back in the day, why people were more successful in early seasons than they were in later seasons. And there's plenty of there's a whole bunch of different things we could speculate on. I think that the focus on the judges certainly was a change, but people forget. And I think that it was really just the first 4 seasons that had this as the motivation. Idol was created by Simon Fuller because, you know, he had managed the Spice Girls and Annie Lennox, and the Spice Girls had broken up, and he didn't have any more clients. He was looking for clients that he could manage, people who he could make into, you know, career artists. And so Idol was created for that reason. And 19, his company at the time, produced the show to find new artists and develop new artists. And so the production company that was in charge of it, 19, had a vested interest in making sure that every single kid who comes through this show, I mean, we were 24, but who comes through this show has a long-term career. We got signed to 19 records after the show was done. And, you know, after season 4 or maybe 5, I don't know the numbers exactly, Simon Fuller sold the show. He sold his company to, you know, for hundreds of millions of dollars. And the show became more produced by a different production company and a TV network. And it was about being a TV show. And not to say that we didn't have the Jordan Sparks come off of seasons like that, and the Adam Lamberts and the, you know, Scotty McCreery's who were successful still. But in seasons 1, 2, 3, and 4, that was the purpose of the show. Not just in writing, not just in branding to find new, you know, idols. It was literally what the whole business model was. And that changed. And I think we started seeing that the show was about, let's get great ratings. And it continued to get great ratings. It's still one of the highest rated shows on TV now. Yeah. But it changed its focus. It needed to get great ratings, pull people in. Now, of course, they want to get lots of followers on social media. They want to get, shares and whatnot. So the focus has shifted some. I mean, obviously, those folks who produce Idol, who have been there, many of them for 20 plus years, they would say that their goal is to find, you know, the people who can go on to be the next Kelly Clarkson. But I think that there are other hands in the kitchen, you know, cooks in the kitchen who have different priorities, and that probably changes it some.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, and there can only be one Clay Aiken. So they're not going to, they're not going to be able to find another one. So maybe they just should stop. But I mean, how surreal was it to go back though? Obviously, as we just said, the show is like very different now, looks very different. But I mean, I imagine that the contestants look to you for advice and, you know, look at you as the person that really paved the way for the path that they're on now.
Well, I mean, in honesty, the contestants who were on this year weren't born when I was on Idol. So they only know of me from Wikipedia. And many of them grew. I mean, I haven't performed. I haven't put music out in 18 years. So, you know, they are familiar with it because of the, you know, the legend of Ruben and Clay or whatnot. But, you know, the show is so different. I mean, the only things that are the same now, that the showrunner, Megan Wolflick, she was an associate producer on season 2. Patrick Lynn, who was an associate producer season 2, who put me through to Hollywood, he is still a top producer on the show now. Outside of that, I can't really think of anything. I mean, they still have a table for the judges to sit at, and Ryan Seacrest is still there.
Yes.
And that's about it. You know, it's shot at a different set now. The contestants get to, you know, they have a live band. We sang the track. It's so different. And ironically, when we were, you know, the show that had 40 million viewers, they were doing that show on a shoestring budget, and I joke, and it's a joke, but it's true. Our set was literally made out of paper mache. The texture in the back, it was paper mache. Now it's lasers and sets and lights and smoke and fire and whatnot. It's budgets, rinky-dink budgets back in 2003, and now it's got a huge budget, and it doesn't feel like the same thing at place. So it's kind of like going back to your old high school 30 years later, if your old high school had been torn down and a new building had been built and none of your teachers were still there. I mean, so what's the
right?
Same, right?
So completely different. Yeah. Well, and so your new single, Rewind, it's a bold name and a bold choice for the single. Is what does that mean to you? Is it ironic, or is it like a literal kind of meaning that you chose that to be your first single in 18 years?
Well, I mean, I decided that I was going to come back to performing. My son has grown. He's close to graduating high school. And so, I'm very nearly an empty nester now, and getting back to this is something that I always hoped I would be able to do. And so I started knowing I was going to do that before we found Rewind, and found several other songs and found some that I liked quite a bit, and just decided, listen, let's sit still and not make any moves to put anything out until we find exactly the right song. And, it's one of those things, when it comes along, you'll know it. And the day I heard Rewind, I was, sometimes people will send a song to you. Oh, I just wrote this song that I think you would be great on, or I wrote this song just for you. And you take a deep breath because you're going to have to listen to it and come up with a reason to put them off, and I remember listening to it and immediately not even responding to the text that sent the link. I picked up the phone and called the guy who wrote it and said, this is it. Like, this is the one, because it sort of encompassed a lot of the stuff that I was hoping to do in this return, so to speak. The kind of harken back to the musical styles that I grew up on, the 80s, the 90s, in part. Really tap into nostalgia, because that's a big thing now. The world's moving so fast these days that nostalgia is so much more important to people, to kind of feel that security. Every decade comes back around. We had bell bottoms for a while in the 70s, and then they went away. And then there was a period in the 2000s where they came back for a second. And, so we're in that place where the 90s and the early 2000s is beginning to come back around too. So it was sort of the perfect time, not only for me to say, I'm going to come back to performing, but also this song it's exactly that. And not only lyrically it says that, but I think the sentiment is true too. There are times in our life when we get frustrated or overwhelmed or stressed out or whatnot. And then there's nothing more comforting than going back and popping on an old episode of 30 Rock or The Office and just feeling safe in that. And I think that when we get stressed and overwhelmed and the world feels like it's too much to deal with, as it can be now, it is, there's nothing more comforting than kind of just going back to the things that we knew were safe. And that's what the song talks about. And I feel like that's what I am too.
Yes. Yeah. No, I love that. And, you mentioned this, but Parker, your son, you mentioned that he's graduating high school, you're about to be an empty nester, but this is also really the first time that he's experiencing you putting out music. How has that been? Did you share it with him ahead of time? Did you get his input? How was that? Or are you just letting him kind of experience?
Do you have kids?
Clay Aiken?
You don't have kids?
I don't have kids. I don't.
Okay, because I'm telling you, they don't give a flying shit what their parents do.
I think that he will someday. He will someday.
One day he will. One day, hopefully I'll still be alive when he finally does. Listen, he's also been surrounded by music his whole life. His uncle is David Foster. His aunt is Kat McPhee. He's got an aunt and a dad who came in second on Idol. It's crazy. He's been surrounded by it, so he's less impressed by it. I think even if that were not the case, most teenagers are minimally impressed by what their parents do, if they even know. He's supportive, certainly, and he heard everything before anybody else did. He was like, oh, yeah, I like that. He has some that he likes more than others. He likes Rewind. He likes one or two of the other ones. that I've recorded. I think he's also sort of at the age he's about to be a senior in high school. So I kind of got a head start on things. He's not quite graduated, but it's going to take a second for me to get my joints warmed up again. So so he's still in school and he's still around people and gets to, I don't know if benefits the word. He gets the residual effects, I think, of having not only my name, but now his name in People magazine or whatnot. We never let anybody talk about or discuss him in the press in the years that he was growing up. And when he turned 16, we let him make the decision and he decided he was fine with it. We did Celebrity Family Feud and that was his big debut. And then since then, he's not bothered by it at all. He kind of he doesn't mind the attention a little bit. He'll pretend he doesn't like it, but he does. So that's the degree to which he's impressed. It's not with me. It's only with the fact that other people know his dad or his name is in the news somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm sure that some of that is just that teenage angst and he's putting on a bit of a front because when your dad's Clay Aiken, I think that you are impressed. Has he also heard, like, does he listen to your old music? Has he like gotten into your catalog? Like,
I don't think so. I mean, when he was a kid, I sang Moon River to him every night when he went to bed. And that was sort of our song. So he's heard that. He knows I recorded that. Sometimes when I wasn't home or around, he would play that when he went to bed. But outside of, and I guess he's heard Invisible because it's around, right? I don't know if he's heard anything else either. Someone asked me a while ago if he had seen my performances from Idol, and I don't think he has. He might have seen Bridge Over Troubled Water because it kind of gets shared and has a little virality to it every once in a while. But, our season is very hard to find. Yeah. It's not, and that's, just digress for a second. That's another thing that's crazy about the power of Idol and how big it was and how much of a phenomenon it was back in the noughts or whatever we call the O's, is that, not only do people still recognize Ruben and myself and Fantasia and all these folks from the show, but they do it based only on memory because unlike those repeats of 30 Rock, which I can throw on anytime, or The Office or whatnot, you can't go back and watch any of our seasons. They don't exist anywhere. Yeah. I think there might be a clip or two of one or two of the songs that I did back then that has leaked its way onto YouTube. We posted some of them not too long ago, but you can't go back and watch the whole season. You can't watch that stuff. So it's crazy that people still remember it when they've not had any refreshers over the years. And to that end, because it's not available, I don't think he's ever seen any of that. And, his mother executive produced 2 of my albums, but I don't even think he's heard those. So, I'd be surprised. He did come to my last tour was a Christmas tour in 2012, I think, and he came to one of those shows, but he was only 4, so I don't think he really
has that memory. Yeah,
I don't think he even knew if he stayed awake the whole time. And then I toured with Ruben in 23 on a reunion anniversary thing. Yes. And he did come to that. And I think that was really one of the first times he had ever seen me in any kind of concert that he would remember. So this is all still sort of new to him. I think he's always known that Dad's famous, but he's never really understood why. And so maybe now he knows.
That's wild. I mean, it blows my mind because you did take this hiatus from music for so long. And I imagine like a lot of that was just because of him and your focus on being a father and really discovering like that side of your life. And so now that he is getting to this new stage and he's going to kind of go off and be his own man, you are reemerging into
trying to be my own now finally too. So
yeah. Well, and you did re-record Measure of a Man, and I know that you talked about the first time that you recorded it. You were a closeted gay man that was singing about love that you didn't really understand. Tell me a little bit about like what it's like to re-record it, and like does it mean something more to you now on the other side of it, and is that why you chose to re-record that?
It was sort of a tiptoe back into singing and recording. It was the first time I'd been in the studio in a long time. So we were looking at stuff that from that first album, which did very well. And, obviously people know Invisible from it. They might know another song or two here or there, but, I toured with Kelly on that album, and I did another tour after on that album. So songs that people remember, and are there ways to revisit them? Dave All Day did dance remixes to Invisible, which kind of blows my mind because dance remixes and me is not something that was on my bingo card. But but Measure of a Man was one that, I did not, we were looking through them, I didn't really, I don't know if I ever really understood exactly what it was about. And honestly, I can't remember if it was me or my manager, Johnny, who suggested kind of looking at it in a different way. And that came about, and rewriting it and changing lyrics in that way just kind of came naturally when I thought about it in that way. I mean, that is what my life is. It's certainly not all my life has been for the last 18 years, but it's certainly been a big part of it, right? So fatherhood, and just kind of, I'm never done with it. I will not ever not be a dad. So,
right.
But I hope the hard part's through. Maybe not. I was just thinking this morning, now we're getting to the place where he goes off on his own, and we just have to hope and pray he is safe, because we can't restrict him and keep him safe. Now we just have to hope that he is. So, I forgot what I was talking about, but yes.
Yeah.
Totally got distracted, but keep it in.
Thinking about sending him away.
Day.
Yeah. No, I think you also you had 6 albums, and you were on this machine coming off of Idol. And as you talked about the 2 tours for the first album, and then, chose to really step away. What were you feeling during that time? Were you feeling relief, or were you feeling the itch to kind of get back out and just chose not to?
No, I never really felt the itch at all. Well, I can't say never. I had a little bit of an itch. I went and saw one of Ruben's tours. He does a Luther Vandross tribute show, and I went and saw that in 2018, and was like, oh, it was so good. I thought, I would do something. I would do something with him. So he and I did a show on Broadway together in 2018. That was sort of motivated by seeing how good that was. But then the itch went away after we were done with that. I didn't have necessarily any desire to go back and do it again. And it wasn't until this reunion tour, this anniversary tour that we went on. He was going to do it himself, and he suggested maybe we do it together. And I said, okay, 20 years, 20th anniversary seems like a reasonable thing. And I really loved it. I didn't have the itch to go back to it going into it. I wasn't against it, but I wasn't like, yes, I can't wait, I'm dying for this. But once we got on stage, and it was a long tour, we did a lot of shows, and I never got bored of it. It was always enjoyable, and being able to see fans who I guess, I didn't know personally, but I recognized some faces from 20 years prior or 15 years prior, and seeing, oh, wow, they're still around. That was kind of exciting to me. So the itch really didn't happen until after that tour. And I credit Ruben largely for reminding me of how much I enjoyed it, because I don't know, had it not been to that tour, if I would have thought, oh, I want to do this again. I would have certainly been at a crossroads in my life with Parker growing up, graduating, and moving into adulthood. But I don't know if it would have been music or performing that I would have necessarily jumped into right away. So if people are upset that I am coming back to music, they can blame Ruben. And if they are happy about it, then they have him to thank too.
I don't think anyone's upset about it. I think the other thing that I think about with the Idol contestants is the difference between then and now is that, and I mean no harm in this, because I think everybody who's talented and gets the platform to be able to be on TV is a wonderful thing. There's a lot of talent in the world. But in those first few seasons, you touched on this with the Simon Fuller piece of it, is he did have something that was just kind of magic about finding people, because you look at you and Kelly Clarkson, and you look at even a Carrie Underwood, some of these are known today, you three in particular, I think, and probably Fantasia's in that group as well, of some of the greatest voices of our time. And he he gave that platform and you guys were able to kind of go on and do these things, but you just don't hear that coming off of the shows today of like, oh, this is one of the greatest voices that, is potentially in Jennifer Hudson. I mean, there are people that like truly you're like looking back, you're like, man, that was a really talented group back
Well, I
then.
think part of, there are probably several things that are responsible for that. One, it wasn't Simon Fuller. It was America, right? It was
true.
People were voting, and it was the first time that had happened. I think there were talent shows in the 60s on TV, but they did not have the direct to consumer access to actually choose who was. I mean, Star Search was obviously huge in the 80s and 90s too, but it was not voted on by the public. So that was a big part of it. People at home were deciding who they liked the most, and they chose based on what they heard and saw, maybe not the prepackaged thing that the label probably would have created for them and then delivered to them. So that was part of it. Also, I think, the market was not so oversaturated back then that, if someone had a voice like Kelly or Ruben, where were they going to go? Like this was the opportunity for them to sing. Like, why not? I'm going to do this. Absolutely. Whereas as the years have gone on with Idol, certainly we've seen copycats. The Voice has sort of kind of copycatted it a little bit. I mean, they say it was about the voice. I don't think it was ever about the voice. It was about the chairs. But
exactly.
But not only that, but social media has made it just very easy for people to sing on their phones, put it on Instagram or TikTok and get a following. And so the types of people who are showing up to audition for Idol are, I think there's a lot of recycled people who have auditioned for The Voice and not made it or gotten a little bit. And then they come back and they audition for the new Star Search, or they go audition for America's Got Talent and then Idol and whatnot. And then also some people are just choosing not to go about it. And so because they've got another path on Instagram or TikTok. So that might have something to do with it. I mean, I frankly think that it's hard to tell because the folks I look on TikTok and Instagram, I'm like, oh my God, they said, wait a second. I know damn well that shit was tuned in post-production.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
That if anything is the nice thing about Idol. It was, since it's live, people were singing live and could sing live. But I think that the novelty of it in the early days really drew out everyone. Listen, I would not have gone to, if I had not been of age to audition for Idol until season 6 or 7, I probably wouldn't have done it. But It was so novel when I went and auditioned. I didn't know that it was going to change my whole life, right? So it was more of a, let's roll the dice and see what happened. All the folks on our season, we used to say we thought it was going to be a nice little summer camp experience. We were going to kind of go have a fun experience, and then we're going to go back to what we were doing before. And we did not know it was going to change everything. And I think that in later years also, what you saw with Kelly and most of the people on my season, and certainly Fantasia and Jennifer Hudson and Diana DeGarmo, Carrie Underwood, Bo, those folks came as they were, right? They showed up out of their Uber. Well, they didn't have Uber back then. They got out of their taxi and came to audition. And in later years, and I find this somewhat fascinating. In later years, people started creating the persona they wanted to have before they showed up to the show. They manufactured how they were going to, listen, I might as well have been wearing a ripped t-shirt and a pocket protector when I showed up, right? And people got to see the transformation. They got to see the change. And in later seasons, I think people showed up a little bit more like, I've got my brand, I've got my image, and now I'm going to present it to you.
Yeah.
Which
I
don't think is as authentic. I mean, personally.
And a lot of the contestants, I mean, I worked in the music industry for many years, and my best friend, Cassidy Pope, won The Voice. And the peek behind the curtain is a lot of these contestants now also already have teams, and they're being placed on the shows for the exposure and the platform.
And we couldn't have managers. We weren't allowed to have a manager because obviously Simon Fuller wanted to manage everybody, right?
Yes.
Weren't allowed to have a manager. Weren't allowed to have any records released in the past. I mean, I think also, again, it's been 25 years. Next year will be 25 years of Idol. And now, I mean, I've mentioned The Voice and America's Got Talent, and there was Star Search on Netflix and Building the Band on Netflix. I mean, there's so many of them. Like, and like I said, Instagram, social media, people are choosing not to. It's tougher to cast. I mean, they have to go and cast these shows. When I auditioned, there were 2,000 people lined up on the street in Atlanta for 2 days to get in there and audition. And then the next season 3, they had to start holding auditions in stadiums. And having, because tens of thousands of people would show up in every city. Now they do have some degree of auditions, but a lot of it is, okay, I will see someone performing on Instagram or TikTok, and I'll forward it to my friend who's the showrunner and say, you might want to look out, try to catch this one.
Interesting.
Because they're really good. And they have to do a lot of outreach to get people, because Idol also really wants to not do that churn, right? They don't want to take the person who was on The Voice and didn't make it. They want to have new, fresh people. So they have to do a lot of work to kind of cast it. They have a casting department that didn't exist in the first few seasons.
Right.
So people not only come with their own styles, but yes, they have a manager, and their manager specifically says, let's put you on the show. I mean, I mentored a few years ago on Idol, and there was a young girl who came in, was one of the kids who I mentored, and she was so good. She reminded me of Kelly with that personality, that bubbly personality, and had a great look and a great voice. And I remember thinking, this girl could go far. And then I found out a few weeks after I had done mentoring, before they even went to live shows, she had dropped out. And I think a lot of them do that just because they want to get on TV, get heard singing, and then now they got a reel that their manager or whatnot can go pitch to whoever you pitch things to, right?
Yeah.
So it became so big and such a huge, successful machine that in some ways I think it ended up cannibalizing some of what made it great. But, it's still the one on TV that it is holding as true as it can. The 2026 version is holding as true as it can to the original intent of the show, which is to find undiscovered talent that wouldn't have an opportunity otherwise. The kid who I sang with on the finale, he's from deep in the mountains in North Carolina, and he grew up singing in church, but the exposure he got from the show will change his life. The young lady who won this year, she would not have gone on to a career necessarily had it not been for Idol. So I think that's what they're searching for, and I think that's probably what allows it to maintain its appeal, is that it's really doing its best to try to find the kid next door as much as possible.
Yeah. And so the 2026 version of Clay, what is that like performing now versus then? Do you feel like there's a 2026 version that is different or more authentic maybe than the Clay from Idol days?
Well, I don't remember the old guy, so I don't know. I mean, listen, we all change. If I had to quantify it and say, what is it? I don't know if I could. I don't give a shit anymore. Maybe that's what it is.
I love that.
not in the worst way possible. I say that, but in the sense that, I'm just going to do what I want to do. I wore an outfit on Idol when I went back that was very polarizing. I got some messages from people who I used to think loved me that were just, I hated it. My mother said I looked like an idiot, but I was like, you know what? I think it's cool. I'm going to wear this shit. I don't care. And I think that there's more of that. I think that also is just sort of how we are as we get older, right? You learn what matters more. This is all sort of new to me, right? And I have been gone for a while, but coming back to something that should be old hat. There was no Spotify when I was last recording. The last thing I put out was on CD, right? Mm-hmm. And physical copies mattered. Radio mattered back then. There was no social media. I think Facebook was available, but only if you were a college student. Like that was what was happening last time I put out a single or an album of that kind. So there's a lot of new stuff to learn now. So the 2026 me is a little confused, but not stressed as much as I probably was back then, because
you're also
I'm just going to have fun with it. I'm old enough to know better, I hope.
Yeah. And you're also you're authentically you. And, I wonder, what it was like for you. And saying this as a, closeted gay man growing up until I was 30, essentially, coming out very late in life. Like there was a lot of fear back then during those Idol days as an even a viewer. Like sometimes I felt like I couldn't share that I was a viewer of American Idol. And I can only imagine that you being on the show and being this closeted gay man, like what it that must feel so different being on stage. And maybe that's what's allowing you to kind of like, wear the outfits that you're wearing and really just be kind of
You
you.
saying I look gay? No.
Never. No.
You know what? It's funny. I'm sitting here thinking, no, because it's going to sound crazy. I was not closeted when I was on Idol only because I didn't realize I was gay until I was on Idol. I know I tell people that America knew I was gay before I did. I've seen my first audition, I've seen my first performances, and I get it. But at the time I didn't know. It wasn't until I was on the show that, I started meeting other people who were gay. And I mean, I knew that I was going to probably marry a good church girl who didn't want to have sex too much, right? But I wasn't into it yet. But I didn't realize what that was until I was 24. I was on the show and I met somebody there, and that was the first person I ever dated. And that was probably about 5 weeks into our season when I finally came out to myself, right? And so I wasn't even thinking about being closeted then. I mean, I came out to myself, and then we were so sequestered on that show that it wasn't like anybody was going to find out anyway. I was just doing the show. Yeah, certainly in a few later years, after the show was over, tabloids decided, I mean, it's fascinating to me looking back at the way the media behaved back then.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine them getting away with that now?
Yeah.
I mean, Is Clay Gay was the
wild.
first, like on the Chiron of Entertainment Tonight and all those shows. I think it's hilarious. But I don't know if I blocked it out or if I just rolled with the punches because I was still in some ways figuring it out. I didn't come out publicly largely because I had not told all my family. It was several years after Idol, at least 2 or 3 after Idol, that I told my mother. And then after that, I had not told my grandparents. I hadn't told extended family. But I think it's a journey. It was a journey for me, just like it is for every gay man and gay woman and trans man and trans woman in the country. You don't tell everybody at once. You kind of let it trickle out, and everybody has their own path. And I just happened to be taking mine in front of everyone.
Yeah.
And in front of everyone else who said who already knew. They had already had a decision and passed a judgment on it, and they knew they were right. And there were some people who were pissed that I wasn't coming out because they thought, how could he be well, I just hadn't figured it all out yet, right? Even when I came out, I was out to, I think, everybody who I was around by 2006, 7 maybe. People who I worked with. It wasn't, I just lived my life. But in 2008, I kind of had to come out because I had decided to have a child, and my team at the time said, listen, we'd be perfectly fine with you not saying anything, but if you have a kid, then it's just going to make everybody talk about it again. So let's just rip the Band-Aid off. You're out there. So we did. And, not because I wanted to or didn't want to, but sort of because it was required back then to say it. It wasn't enough for anyone to just live their life. And even after I came out publicly, I was dating somebody at the time. And as soon, I was on the cover of People magazine.
Right.
It was all these stories. I came out, and the person I was dating, I think he thought that, okay, now we're just going to hold hands in public. We're just going to be open. And it was tough. I had to kind of explain to him, and like, I'm still learning this myself. Like, I'm not just, so it's a process for everyone. I think I just had to go through it publicly. And I am in awe almost of the amount of progress that's been made in the intervening years, because in, 2006, Lance Bass came out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did in 2008. We were the only ones who did it last ones to do it on the cover of a magazine. Not because we were like, hey, give me the cover of a magazine, but because like they were going to put it on the cover of the magazine, whether I wanted it to be on there or not. And then no one else ever had to. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the folks who came out publicly after I did were sort of able to kind of maybe post about it on Facebook or mention it, drop it in an interview somewhere. And Neil Patrick Harris, Ricky Martin, Anderson Cooper, all those folks came out after, and it was not as big a deal anymore. And to think now, hell, being gay or trans is better for your career now in some ways than it is to not. So I'm thrilled with the amount of progress that has been made. And hopefully because we see so many high profile people who are gay, lesbian, trans, that hopefully it makes it easier for the kid in Peoria who's learning himself or herself. Because I always found it ironic that the folks who were, honestly vocally pissed at me for not coming out. I mean, these are the tabloid people who were trying to drag me out or who wanted to, that their argument was, look what you're not being an example for these kids in middle America who are struggling with their sexuality. You must come out in order to do this. And I always thought, yeah, but it's not what I'm doing that's scaring them. It's what you're doing that's scaring them. It's the fact that you can't just shut up about it and let people live. That's what makes these kids worry about, like, if I come out, am I going to, if I am gay, am I going to have to tell people on the cover of a magazine?
Right.
Yeah. And that culture is what made it more less accepting for people. And the one we're in now, I do believe, is far better.
Yeah. And I love that. I think it was like Love, Simon or one of the movies that, explores this topic is like, but it's like straight people don't have to tell their parents that they're gay or that they're straight. Right. And so why are we in a culture where like gay people are forced to announce it? Because it should just be. And
it should just be. And to that end, I think that the fact that, every TV show has a gay character on it now, and that'd be great if they didn't have to underline it every time and make it about the characters. Like that's what the character was built on, right? I watch, this is going to feel like it comes out of nowhere, but I've gotten into Great British Bake Off, the old episodes of Great British Bake Off, and I can't bake. I'm not British, so who the hell knows why I'm doing it. But one thing I love about it, that, as a former special ed teacher, I love the fact that they have people on that show who have a physical disability, or they might have there was a young lady on last season who had a stutter, a verbal impediment, and they never mention it. They never mention it. They never explain it. They never make it a part of their story. It just is. There was one young lady who was on a few seasons back, and it wasn't until maybe the end of the season I happened to notice that she only had 2 fingers. And I was like, how did I not? Because they don't make a big deal out of it. They just they don't make that the part of their story. And I think, God, why don't we do that here? That is the way to talk about anyone who is has a disability or is in a marginalized community of any kind. Let's just let people be and not make their sexual orientation or their race or their ethnicity or their religion or their physical or mental situation be their defining trait.
Yeah.
And we're still working on that part in America, but we've certainly gotten further than we did back then.
Yeah. And, really, though, you have been very humble through this entire time. And every time we talk, I compliment your voice, or I see you throw it back to Kelly and Ruben and everyone else. But so you'll probably do that here too. But you trailblazed that. Exactly what you just said is like you and Lance being kind of the last people that had to do it on a cover, is because after that, and, Lance, maybe not as much. I think he hit it more and, with his girlfriends and having to be in the boy band. But you just said, I lived my life and I just never really thought I needed to say it. And I was still figuring it out. And then you were told like, it's probably time to say something. But you doing that allowed all those people that were watching Idol and going like, I love Clay because I can see myself in him, or I can see that this, gay, incredible talent is like, it's not about him being gay. It's about him being this talent. And then when you confirmed it like maybe let some people take a breath and go, it's okay to just be me, because like, look at all of what Clay has done and look at what
Well,
he has.
I hope that there are people who had that it had that effect. But I will say that when I think of trailblazing, I think of people who took a concerted risk, who stepped forward, like Ellen did when she lost her show practically over her sitcom over coming out, or people who came out and were unapologetically gay, like Elton John, decades before anybody else was. Those people took an active step to say, I'm going to do. It happened to me, right? And it happened to me in a very public way before it happened to somebody. It would have happened to somebody else, I guess is what I'm saying. If it had been somebody else in that position, it would have happened to them. So I don't know that I could take the credit for. I don't think I'm a trailblazer. I think the trail blazed right over top of me, and I just happened to be there when it did.
I mean, I think that there was, like, as an outsider, I remember the People magazine cover, and there was like an element of like, well, yeah, that feels like what we probably already thought. So it wasn't like breaking news, but it was like, oh, why is he even having to tell this story? Like, and I think that almost does create, and I know, again, I'm going to stick with Trailblazer because I do think that there is an element of the people like you that made those big swings, and whether forced to or not, it has led us to where we are today, though we still have room to grow. But I think that, I thank you for telling your story and being brave and being bold in that way, because it does allow it to start to go like, yeah, I can just be me too. And I maybe don't have to do it on People magazine, but
well, hopefully it will continue to get. Hopefully, we'll get to that great British Bake Off version of.
I mean, if we could apply that to so many things in America, I would be.
It'd be a lot simpler. That's why I say, when you're stressed out about where life is right now,
yeah,
nostalgia, rewind.
Yes, rewind, and that brings us back to rewind. It's out, and you've mentioned some other music. Tell us, like, what does this mean now that Clay Aiken is back in music?
I don't completely know myself. I recorded quite a few other things. There had been discussion about maybe we drop a song here and then maybe drop another one later. Then there was a discussion about, well, maybe we'll put an EP together. And now we're sort of at a place where I think, you know what? Why pansy ass about it? Let's just record enough to make an album. So I'm working on that. We'll see how my first album came out. I finished recording that first album probably within 2 months of Idol being done. And that was largely because it was bestowed upon me. The songs were chosen for me.
Right.
I was told where to go, what to do, who to be there with, all of it. And, and then after that, Clive said, your next album is going to be a Christmas album. Okay. And then your next album is going to be covers. I never really got ever, even when I changed labels, I changed and went to Decca, and it was, predicated on you're going to do an album this way. It's going to have this type of music on it. So this is the first time that I've ever kind of gotten to really, without anybody else telling me what to do or what to sing, kind of gotten to pick stuff that I have fun with. It's the first time, by the way. There will be ballads and I'll be belting and shit. Don't worry. But, I didn't realize until we had finished Rewind, Invisible's the only up-tempo song I ever had. And so, I mean, I guess I recorded some stuff on that 2010 album it was sort of like Frankie Valli type up-tempo stuff, but it never had any up-tempo pop songs. And so I've kind of wanted to find a few of those. So Rewind is one, there are one or two others. And I'm really just kind of, I don't want to say taking my time, because I understand, my hair's getting grayer every day. So I've got to move. It's not going to be forever, but I've tried to be deliberate, and I think there will be an album now. I don't know if I can say exactly for sure, but I think that's a goal, and I'm not done with it yet. So I don't know when it'll come out, but I think it'll be. I saw something the other day. There will be new music available to people before they need sweaters again.
Okay, perfect.
In Mexico.
I do, the difference now between this time that you've taken, as you mentioned, Spotify, is like you can truly just put a song out whenever you want, like Rewind, without a true full plan. And so many artists do that now. And so I hope that you will keep, giving the fans what they want, which is more Clay. And I love, Invisible still often comes up in our kitchen Saturday night dance parties that we're having with our friends. And we love spinning around, singing along to
Well,
it.
now we got a new one for you. So Rewind 2.
And I was going to say, when Rewind came out, I sent it on my group text thread and was like, Clay's back. We are solid. So
it's a very good song. I wish I had written it. I can't take credit for it, but I mean, I think I sang it okay. But I will say the song is, it is I've told people, I've been struck by lightning a few times in my life, just in general. But this particular song feels like it's the closest I could ever possibly get to being struck again, because it just was so, I feel so lucky that it was handed to me.
Yeah, it feels like you mentioned nostalgia, which I was going to say, but it also feels fresh. It's fresh, it's nostalgic. It's it's a fun sound and song, especially for this time of year. So I'm so glad to, have you back and excited for what, you are going to deliver on this album that will really be like the true representation of you, it sounds like, for the first time.
And buckle up, y'all.
Album number 7, lucky number 7 is going to be
right. Oh, right.
True
oh, God,
Clay.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, Clay, this has been such a great conversation. I really just appreciate that you took the time. As I said, such a fan from the very beginning, saw you there in Denver on your first tour, and, am excited for when you are out on the road again and can come through. I'm in Nashville now. So next time you're in Nashville, I will be there.
I'll look for you near the bus.
Yes, I will stand by the bus in the circle and ask, when are they coming out? When are they coming out? And they kept saying, I think they're showering. I think they're then they're taking their time. I waited.
No, I was hoarding up catering. That's what I was doing. I'm getting some food.
Yeah, that was something I probably needed more of at that point. But no, it was really great to have you. And where can people keep up with you? I know that social media and all of that stuff is wasn't around the first time around, but let's make sure that we're,
it is now. And I got lucky. I got my name everywhere. So it's Clay Aiken. I think everywhere that they have something. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. What else am I missing? Yeah, it's Clay Aiken everywhere. So
all the things.
Just
it is
hashtag / whatever it is.
Yes, The Real Deal at Clay Aiken. Follow for more. And the new single is called Rewind. Go download it, go stream it, go watch it on YouTube. Clay, thank you so much. And for all of you out there listening, thanks for listening. That's been The Gist.